Howdy everyone, Greenside Project here, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to paint robes like the one our company commander Carl here has. Painting robes effectively and highlighting them effectively is something that I found really difficult for a long time, and that's why when I have found sort of a solution to it or a way that works for me, I thought I'd do an in-depth tutorial. Unlike my previous tutorials, I spent quite a bit of time with this one really trying to show you more than just the paints I've used. So what I've done is I've done a lot of filming as I've painted the mini in question. Here, by the way, is the mini that you'll be seeing being painted, the Watcher. Now, throughout the tutorial, all I've done is I've painted the robes, and then it's only now I've finished those videos that I've added a bit more detail onto it. And actually, you can see if you look at the top of this hood, there's a little bit of a mark on its hood when I've been applying the washes that I need to cover up. As I say, it's a bit more of a let's paint, because there'll be quite a bit of time just watching me paint as I discuss either the techniques I've been using or ramble on about whatever sort of interested me that day. Hope you find it useful. Now, before I discovered this way of painting robes, I just want to have a quick show for you of how I used to do robes. Now, here's the limited edition Chaplain from Dark Vengeance box. As you can see, he's got some robes in. It's quite a dramatic contrast with his robes, because what I used to do is just apply Rakear Flesh and then put a wash of the old Devlin mud, or nowadays it would be... goodness me, how can I have forgotten? 1 second, let's look in the paint pots. Agrak's Earthshade, I've just remembered. So, Rakear Flesh and then Agrak's Earthshade. And actually, it didn't look horrible. The contrast was too much for me. Here you can see the same effect on some Skaven robes. The reason I wanted to show you these was because sometimes you want that dirty look that you get from just doing a wash on top of something, to add depth and dirt and things. And if I was doing more Skaven, or when I'm doing more Skaven, that's the technique I'll use. Equally, for things like my sergeants, my veterans and things from my Dark Angels army, I don't mind doing the wash finish. I don't think it looks particularly bad. When I'm doing more of a sort of high quality paint job, as I was trying to do for this Chaplain, it just comes off as not quite precise enough, a bit too messy. So this is the way that I do it, involving subtle highlighting, and that's the way you'll see me doing it today. Now, this is the first tutorial I've done with a real sort of watch me paint aspect to it, so apologies if there's times where the mini creeps towards the side and gets a bit out of focus. I am watching back at some of the videos, having uploaded them all now, just about to edit them together. I thought, goodness me, I could have shot that a bit better or done this or that differently. But I hope you enjoy it, I hope you find it useful. So in a minute I'll click my fingers, there'll be a magical transition to this guy just with some undercoat on, and you'll see me start to paint the robes. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, here's our mini primed in Chaos Black, as you can see. Our first step is we're going to base coat the robe with Steel Legion Drab. So I'm going to shake up the bottle and leave the mini in frame so you can see it. And as far as I'm concerned, your goal with base coats is you want to get a really opaque, good looking finish with as little paint as possible. So instead of doing one layer of paint with the paint quite thick, what we're going to aim to do, squeeze my hand there, is do maybe 2 layers of paint with comparatively thin paints. Because the worst thing in the world is obscuring detail. And I know it's a bit of a cliche on 1D4 chan and that thing about thin paints, but the reason is it's true. If you're a painter, and I very much include me in this, get to a certain point of doing detailing minis and you start squinting and thinking, what on earth is that? It just looks like a big dollop of primer to me, and that suggests to me, or it just looks like a big dollop of base coat, that suggests that you've been using paint that's slightly too thick. So, you do want to thin your paint, just dab your paintbrush in some water, put it on. That looks just about right to me. Now, when I first discovered or found out about and recommended thinning paints, I thinned them far too much. because I was told to give them a consistency like milk. And for me, I'm afraid that was far too thin. I don't know if it was because they were using a different type of paint. But for me, what happened is I put paint on there and then it would run. You want to find a really sweet spot when you water down your paints. You want to get to the point where any more water, and they would start to move and run, but they're not. You should be able to, with well diluted paint, just be able to draw a line and it's done there. Obviously that's quite a thick line because I'm using quite a large brush, but hopefully that's given you an idea of how thick your paint should be. Now, if I was not doing this as sort of a, well, I'm going to use the term showpiece miniature, because for me this will be a display or showpiece quality mini. There's many painters who do it much better than me, but for me I'm going to spend all time on this mini. If I was doing a squad, I might use thicker paint just to get the coverage. There, I've said it, I'm a horrible person. Now, if you look at the moment, I'm painting my brush sideways on the texture. There's a reason I've taken a mental note of that, and that you should too. We'll talk about that when we come to applying our second lot of base coat. Right. Now, you've had a good look at this, you've looked at the way I've been moving my brush. Hopefully you've got some sort of idea of the consistency of the paint. What we're going to do is we're going to come back now at a point where I've got the whole base coat of Steel Legion Drab done. You can have a look how it looks. Okay, so I'll see you in a second. Okay, the first coat's dried fully now. Very important tip that I'm ashamed to say took me far too long to learn myself, despite everyone who posted videos on YouTube saying it and every tutorial I read saying it. Make sure the first coat's dry before you apply the second one. If you don't, what happens is you start to scrape and mix the second coat with the first, or the third with the fourth. The paint won't adhere to the surface as well, which means it might fall off. Also, you'll get what looks like, because they are large brush marks. For ages, I couldn't work out where they were coming from when I was doing layering, particularly layering things like power weapons. In the end, it was because the paint wasn't quite dry. So I've really waited to make sure that the paint's dry. Normally what I do, whilst I was waiting, is paint another part of the mini, maybe the base or the sword of the mini, just to get that done, give me something to do whilst the mini is drying. However, as this is a very specific tutorial, because we're talking about robes, what I thought I'd do is I'd just leave everything else out so the eye's not distracted by any other details. So it's time for our second coat. We're going to get another lot of Steel Legion Drab. Now, you remember saying, or me saying, that I'd taken a mental note that my brush was moving sideways when I was painting the first coat. You probably remember it actually a bit better than me, because for you it was mere seconds ago, for me it was probably half an hour ago or so that I said that. But there's a reason for that. Hope you're enjoying your back screen. Oh, let's come back there. And the reason is this. To speed up the process of applying paints, you can try something called cross-hatching. Cross-hatching is when the first coat of paint you apply, let's say, horizontally or sideways, as we did, and the next coat you paint with the brush moving in another direction, you move it vertically like so. Now, this is a million miles away from being my specific tip. I learnt it off Chris at AGP Productions. I can't remember, and I don't know if he mentioned where he got the idea from, but I do know from having read on it after, it's something, a technique that exists in oil painting and classical painting. And what it means is, because you've got the paint coming in a different direction, it creates sort of a lattice like so, which makes the paint appear thicker and the surface appear more one colour than it would be otherwise. So keep trying to do it. Obviously there'll be some parts in the mini where I cannot have a vertical brush stroke, but for most of them I can. Hopefully you can see there it's starting to look a lot thicker now, and that's what we want. We want the tone to look really matte and consistent. Getting there now. So, whilst I was waiting for the paint to dry, this isn't part of the tutorial, you do not have to make notes at this point, but I got my toothbrushes out, not my dental toothbrushes, but my hobby toothbrushes, and did some paint stripping of some old minis. There's always a bit that you can't quite get rid of, I found. Normally in a crevice somewhere. It was really frustrating, so I had a good scrub and a swear at some old Imperial Guard minis over a sink. Get that paint off, and that's left me feeling quite purged, I think. Feeling quite happy with that. Now I'm going to take a look over the mini, check there's nowhere I've missed. Now, this isn't so much part of the robe tutorial, but the general thing. I think I'm going to leave the head, the mysterious blank head, empty. I think that will look best. Let's just see. No, I think that's some sort of mysterious bit of robe, so I'll paint that up. Lovely, guys. What we're going to do is we're going to let them dry. I think we're probably good there, but we'll just let them dry and then see if we need a very thin third and final coat. Okay folks, it's got a bit dark here, so I've got my white light lamp on, my overhead lamp. The light's okay for my painting, but it's not really perfect for the purposes of watching, so we're just going to do this next stage now, and then what I'm going to do is a continued tutorial in the morning. But you might be able to see we've got pretty good coverage. There's just a couple of areas, the most raised areas, that are still slightly darker than we'd like, so we're going to go back to our Steel Legion Drab, which I'm very proud of just having open with one hand. I'm going to put a small amount on my palette. And I have quite a bit of water this time, because the worst thing would be at this stage if we got the coverage too thick and started destroying some of the detail that we just preserved. So this time I think we'll go diagonally, just across like so. Really don't want to miss anyone. Anyway, I really would recommend a white light lamp for anyone who tends to work in the evening, in a place where the evenings can get quite dark, like in England. They can be quite expensive. What I did at first was I just got a regular desk lamp. Actually, I had one around, and I got a white light bulb for it, which works very nicely. The reason we get a white light bulb is because the regular lights bulb in your house, apologies if you don't already, they've got a yellowy tint, so they'll affect the look of your models also make certain highlight colours seem more or less extreme. If you ever painted a mini and thought it looked fabulous at night, then come back to it in the morning and thought, my goodness, what is that I can see before me, what a monstrosity is that? Chances are you've been betrayed a bit. Tis a cruel mistress, the regular indoor bulb. We're nearly there now with this little guy. Well, at least in terms of the first coat of paint. Just tell me if I miss a bit. Excellent, so I think we're pretty much here for now. And that's it done. Coat number 3, and we've got really solid coverage. Next up, we're going to do a little bit of shading. Okay folks, you can see there's a really nice solid coat of our Steel Legion Drab now, so no worries about moving on to the next stage. What we're going to do is we're going to add some shading. To do that we're going to use some Karak's Earth Shade. Now, the traditional way that we'd use washes, and the way that I still use a lot of washes, and certainly the way that I used to use them lots, is just put them over the whole area of colour that we were shading. However, I've found but that makes things just a teeny bit too dark and too dirty looking for our purposes. What we do, if we shaded the whole of the Steel Legion Drab area, is it would make things look dirty. We'd have to re-highlight up Steel Legion Drab, which would take time, and areas like the folds of the cloak that we want dark but not too dark, there'd be too much of a large contrast there. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the wash just on any areas where two different surfaces meet. Say for instance here we've got the sort of top part of the cowl, if you will, meeting the arm, so we're going to apply it there. Where the two arms meet, we're going to apply it. Where the arms meet the sword. A big one for Dark Angels minis, we'll be applying it around belts and any time the cloak or the robe meets the para armour. Now, you don't want too much on your brush, because if you do have a lot, it will run off into the other places and you don't want that. Also, if I was doing a full-on wash, that is a cover that would, or a layer that would cover all the mini, I'd be using a rough brush, a mucky brush, a wash brush, because washing is just one of those other things that seems to take great delight in killing off brushes. I think we just need a teeny bit more. Brief intermission, guys. Okay, let's get a bit more on the belt and the inner fold of the arms there. So we're thinking about the areas of absolute extreme shadow here. Just about there then. Just there, and we're very nearly there. Just there as well. Lovely. So, I'm going to wait for our shade or our wash to dry now, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so we've done that first layer of highlighting. What you might have noticed, either by looking at this mini or your own, when you first apply paint, it's often a teeny bit lighter than when it's dried. So you see, it was quite obvious when I was putting the paint on the mini, when I was applying it, but now it's dried, it's calmed down a bit, and my transitions are a lot more subtle. Next up, we're going to go for some pure Baneblade brown. Water down again. Now, we're going to apply this nearly everywhere we applied the previous coat, which was the Baneblade and Steel Legion Drab mix. However, we're going to leave a slight line or border of the previous mix. Okay. And again, I'm going to start off doing this so you can see how I've done it. And then I'm going to finish off camera. So let's get to a good bit full of folds actually to really demonstrate this. So, I mean, this paint is very dilute. As you can see, it's really nearly at the point where it would start to run. But we're just going to get away from it with it. Yes, we are. And it's good to be this dilute because it means it's going to be nice and transparent. It's going to give us a very subtle highlighting effect. And if it's too subtle, what we can do is we can go over the colour. Oh, sorry, we can go over the highlight with the same colour again. Raise it up if need be. When I first started trying to highlight minis, I was finding it very difficult to get subtle transitions and it's very much about how you've watered down your paints. Put them to a transparent, or at least nearly transparent state. Hopefully, you're getting a good idea of how much I'm applying to the minute. And as I say, it looks a bit more dramatic now than I'd like, but I'm confident that as it dries, what will happen is it will darken in tone. Now you can see a little bit of black undercoat here, and somehow I've missed applying the Steel Legion Drab. That's not going to be the end of the world. I'm not going to panic over that. All it means is, whilst I'm waiting for some other paint to dry, I'll reapply paints I've already used on that little bit. But it's not going to be the end of the world, and I suspect where it is, just a short little bit of I keep trying to say sandy dust at the moment, but it's not. A short little bit of Steel Legion Drab will suffice. So again, applying it pretty liberally, avoiding the deepest recesses and allowing for a little bit of space previous colour to show through. Right, I'm going to finish the rest of this off camera, and I'll see it at the next stage. Okay folks, so now it's time to start our more prominent highlighting, and we're going to use Karak stone to do that. Now this is going to be different from the previous layers of highlighting we're doing. This is the first time where we're going to be leaving most of the surface area unhighlighted. Probably only highlighting about, let's think maybe 30%, 40 or 30% of the whole area, so I'm getting some paint out. Putting it on my palette. There's that one. What I'm going to start doing is over the lines of the road, that's where the folds are coming up. I'm sure there's a proper posh route name for them. But anyway, those roads I'm just going to paint lines with this colour. So just having applied that, I think that's looking a bit thick paint wise for my taste, so I'm going to be applying some water. There's some quite nice things about the new range of paints, but I have found there's an absolute lack of consistency and texture between different paints. And that's not just different paints in terms of different paints with different names and different colours and different tones, but also even the same paint. You know, if you look at more than one of the same paint in a store, as I have in the past, you might find that one's very runny and another is actually quite thick. And that's even when, and especially when, because you should always do this, you've given them a good shake in the mix. So, don't know why that is. They are very lovely paints otherwise, or at least I think they're really nice paints otherwise. I've just got a bit close there to the fold, so let's tease it out a little bit. I'm going to be very light on my brush. Don't want thick lines. Points where it's possible. Instead of using the point of the brush, I'm going to try and use the side and drag it along the edge. That'll make my life a lot easier. To get a consistent line. and no one will ever know. Strangely, I remember when I was 12, I used to think that sort of thing was cheating. Goodness knows why. I think a little part of me was suddenly some sort of masochist, like to make life difficult for myself. So, here you can see. That's it. At this stage things do become a little more time consuming because you're trying to be so okay. Now this video I've been using a white background because I thought it'd be a nice unobtrusive background and it would add light to the footage, but I recently watched a video, funnily enough, by AGP Minis, Chris there, and I keep referencing him because, to be fair, he gives good advice. He's not by any means the only guy I watch on YouTube. But there's lots he says that make sense. Anyway, in his most recent video, one of them, he was saying not to use a white background because it drains the colour from the Mini. And since he said that, I've been looking back at the footage from this thinking, maybe that's true. So what I'm going to try doing next video, whatever how to paint that is, I think I might do a bit of the older switcheroo and see what other colour background I could have. Maybe something a bit darker might work. Hopefully though you can still see there's quite a bit of a contrast now between areas with the Karak stone on and areas that do not have the Karak stone. You'll probably also notice I'm not doing this perfectly, but I think I'm doing one now, so when the paint's dry it'll look quite good to the naked eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this off myself, then I'll show you the next stage of highlighting. Okay guys, so here he is after that first highlight area. What I've done is off camera I've mixed a 50-50 mix of Karak stone and Screaming Skull, which I'm just diluting now. I did it off camera because, well, I don't show it to you anyway, and I thought maybe you'd like to be spared a couple of minutes of just hear me open paints whilst you watch a white blank screen. So that's done now, and what we're going to do is where we've just painted, we're going to do a line on top of that of this new highlight colour, and we're nearly there now folks, which is nice. This bit looks a bit shabby, so I'm going to make a nice little brush of colours. This looks a bit on this colour. Hopefully should get away with it. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so you should get the idea then. What I'll do is I'll stop filming and finish off, and then show you the last stage of highlighting. Okay, so we're on to our last stage of highlighting now. Here's how the mini looks. Now the paint's dried, and this is going to be, yes, you guessed it, just pure Screaming Skull. Give it a shake, open it up. Now this is the most delicate stage because we're just going to do very thin lines at, I guess, the apex would be the word, of the roads at their highest points. We're going to give slight preference to bits towards the top of the mini, where if the mini was being lit from above, the light would hit first. You'll see me doing that. Then we'll be done. So let's have a look. I'm going to try and, yeah, that's nice and centered. I find sometimes with highlighting, instead of doing one straight line, doing a row of small lines in the direction I like to go actually looks more natural, as well as being slightly easier to get accurate. I need a teeny bit more water. See previous comments about the consistency of paint. That's fine. There we go, we need a little bit there. So, yesterday I was doing some gaming in a GW shop for the first time in a long time. People who've been watching my July challenge updates will have heard about that. And I had one of those brief reminders of the sort of insanity that is working for Games Workshop, because I mean, you do get all sorts of people working at Games Workshop, some more sane than others. The guys at our local Games Workshop, actually they're quite nice guys. They don't have that manic Games Workshop stare, they don't insist on calling everyone mate. They're normal, you know, they're normal, slightly nerdy guys, you know, as I am, as, you know, let's face it, most of us in the hobby are one way or another, even if we're well adjusted grown-ups or teenagers in other ways. But this particular guy who was helping run the game with me and the person who was having their first ever probably in 40k, we were talking nicely, and I mentioned passing, oh, had he seen the new Space Marine sort of mini dreadnoughts, I guess they are, I think, are they called Centurions? Basically, power armoured Space Marines in big suits, sort of in between a Terminator suit and a Dread size-wise. They're all over the internet, or at least they are now. Probably if you're watching in the future, they've even been released. But anyway, anyone who's into the hobby and has an internet connection and reads any sort of sites, at the big mini sites, will have read about them at least. I'm sure the guy has read about them because he didn't tell you what. What he did was he clammed up and said, I don't know what you mean, like a robot. Now, I felt a bit sorry. Excuse me, my background's being blown over slightly by the wind. I felt a bit sorry for him because I'm a nice guy, he's a nice guy. I don't want to put him, I'm just going to close my window, stop the gust of wind. I don't want to put him in a nasty situation by making him say something that could cost him his job. He obviously didn't want to be put in that situation, so it sort of killed the talk we were having, and he just had to pretend he didn't know what I was talking about. Now, to a certain extent, I can understand why Games Workshop want to control things like release dates and first images. The reality is, even with leaks, they're still controlling first images because all the images comes from their official sources, or generally comes from their official magazine, come from White Dwarf or whatever. And it's so weird for something with such a comparatively loyal and vocal fan base like Games Workshop has, to just generally pretend the internet, other than the internet that they directly own and control, doesn't exist. Now that's not to say I think that people should go crazy, be allowed to say anything they want about Games Workshop, even publish to a certain extent copyrighted images without Games Workshop having a say in it. But what it does mean is that Games Workshop can't just believe that a very vibrant internet community doesn't exist just because it's not convenient to do so. That's not cool, guys. I don't think. It just makes you more sane employees sound loopy when they have to claim they've never seen something that everyone else in the world has seen. So, hopefully, whilst I've been having that lovely little rant, you've thought, wow, what a fascinating guy he is, I'd like to hear more of him talk, but also you've got an idea of how I'm doing this final stage of highlighting. Let's get this edge here. You can see some of the different brush strokes I've used, single lines, a bit like I'm doing here, doing lots of little lines like I'm doing here, and using the tip and the side of the brush. My brushes, by the way, desperately need to clean. I've got lovely brush conditioner, I really need to use it. I think I've just been a bit idle. I think it might be time for some brush cleaning straight after I finish filming this video. So what I'm going to do, because it's time getting on a bit, I'm going to finish off this and you'll see the last video of the finished mini. So see you in a minute. Okay folks, so this is the model as it is now. Whilst the final coat of highlights were drying, as you can see I started painting up the other details, I've just given them a bit of a wash. I'm not going to talk too much about that though, because I really want to focus on the robes. So because I'm not painting for this video, we can hold it at a different angle, which should give you a slightly better appreciation of the variation in colours there. You can see on the edges we've got that screaming skull highlight, and you can see right to the depth of the original Steel Legion Drab. And on an area like the belt, you can see where the wash was. Anyway, so that's my tutorial done on how we paint robes, or sorry, how I paint robes. I hope it's been a bit of a help for you. Any questions or anything, obviously just send me a PM, I'll put a comment on the post. Thank you for listening, love you all, and bye.